whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on Earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause. Welcome to The Probable Cause. This is a podcast covering Allen County, Indiana, northeastern Indiana, and sometimes the state of Indiana, depending on the subject. I'm your host, Jamie Duffy. I'm a local journalist in Fort Wayne, and to my left is co-host Michael McAlexander, who is the Allen County Prosecutor. Also contributing by call-in is my right hand. She's by now a local personality who remains anonymous. She's been my longtime go-to source for court reporting. She came to her knowledge after losing her 22-year-old son to a homicide, a gun homicide, almost 9 years ago. So this week, the first week of June, is jam-packed in Allen County. Why? The Allen County Prosecutor's Office, our prosecutor here, is hosting the annual Child Support Conference for IPAC, and IPAC stands for the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council. There will be about 300 prosecutors, judges, conferencees who will be coming to this conference, so we're going to get to that. Another reason we have two important trials today, this week. One is a neglect case, a death of a child. I believe he was a toddler. I will be finding that out for you. The scenario is very reminiscent of Malachi Garrett, a little 2-year-old boy whose mother's boyfriend rushed him to the fire station because he went limp after being beaten. Excuse me, Michael Allen has not been found guilty of this case, so I want to be careful in what I say, but he too raised his own child to the fire station in New Haven, I believe it was, and the child did not survive his or her injuries. We'll find that out. I also think, Mike, that we need to spend a little bit of time on the investigation into a bar beating. It was at a Waynedale bar called Pike's Pub, I believe. A video shows 5 or 6 members of men wearing the Outlaws, a biker group, their jackets, and the bar beating was a very visceral, got some very visceral reactions because the people who were doing the beating were white, the man who was getting beaten was black. The victim, James Simmons, did accept my Facebook friend request. Someday I hope to talk to him. But I did read on his Facebook page, and I want to reiterate that I'm in contact with him now because of that page. He does intend to seek justice. But I think the general, somebody close to me said, well, have they arrested anybody yet? We need to go through the process of what an investigation looks like when there might be some charges which are down the line. So Mike, take us through how, when this kind of thing happens, it is sensational. What does the investigation look like, and when does the prosecutor's office get involved?
Well, almost every case starts with a call to the police or finding some evidence that looks like a crime occurred. This one in particular, I think because of the video being put out there, has acquired a lot of attention. But that leads to what so often happens with an investigation, and what we're always concerned about is that nobody jumps to a conclusion about what is happening until they go through the appropriate procedures, which vary from case to case, but is usually going to be an interview with the victim if the person is available. Obviously, in a murder case, the victim isn't available.
Right.
But interviewing all of the other people that you can identify that were at the scene, and you get that by probably talking to the employees of the business that were there, the owner of the business, any patrons that have been identified as being there, if they'll talk to you, the folks that look like they were involved, if you can figure out what their names are.
I think you're going to be able to do that because somebody sent me a photo of one of them already.
Well, and this may be the kind of place, I've never been in this place before, but it may be, kind of a bar where everybody knows everybody.
I think it's probably that too.
So that may not be an issue.
This guy was a regular of the bar. I mean, he knew the owner. He knew the wait staff. In fact, I've heard that he was flirting with the bartender who has a relationship with an outlaw. So all of that culminated into this huge problem.
Right, and
You're telling us a lot of stuff there.
Well, and
this sounds like a really good story.
This is where jumping to conclusions without
Right,
all the facts
exactly.
Gets you in trouble. And that's what we try to avoid, and that's why the police and the sheriff's department has publicly said they're actively investigating this. And their job is to go in with an open mind, because we certainly have plenty of bar fights over girlfriends or people flirting with somebody else that has nothing to do with race or motorcycle gangs or anything else. So each case you have to look at what the facts are, but you go through it step by step to try to determine what happened, why it happened, what went first. I can also tell you that bar fights are some of the most difficult cases to prosecute for the state because there's usually some overreactions by both sides, and it becomes everybody's perception is different because it's moving so quickly. And this one, obviously, there's the person who appeared to be the victim was the only black person that I saw in the video. And that certainly stands out. But whether this was over a girl...
Also, it was 5-1.
Right.
You have that pack attacking one person. And I think a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, that's not fair. That was my reaction. And that's why I want to see what the investigation brings.
Well, and how that will go is the sheriff will go through and do the stuff we've just talked about, interview the people. Hopefully people do talk to him. Sometimes we're at scenes and no one will talk. We had that shooting several years ago at the old Sports and Spirits bar.
Oh, yeah.
That there were 3 people killed. There were about 20 patrons, and nobody would talk about anything.
And no video.
And no video.
Right.
And sometimes you have that happen. So, but when they complete their investigation, they will then forward that to my office, and we will take a look at it to see, one, was there a crime committed? And if there was a crime, do we feel we have enough evidence to prove who did it and to prosecute them?
I think we should also say that you're talking about the sheriff's department, because there was a lot of talk on Facebook that this attack, the bar itself is located in the county, not the city.
Right.
Okay.
And that's why the sheriff responded instead of the city on this.
And I don't know if there was security at the bar either. There's somebody that made mention of that. So I guess that's all going to come out, and it'll be interesting. And I'm sure Fort Wayne, it made the national news apparently. So anyway, so on to the subject of the day. My involvement with IPAC, which is once again, Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council, has been very limited up to date, because usually what I do is I call to find out what their stance is on legalizing marijuana, which is supported by 70% of the Hoosiers. And normally they say we do not favor any legalization, even medical marijuana. They hold the standard high on this. And so that's how I know them, because usually when I'm writing a story about marijuana legalization, I feel though it's necessary to contact them. But right now, prosecutors are congregating at the Grand Wayne Center. You might bump into these people at the Starbucks at the Hilton, at Conjure Coffee, across the street at the Arboretum, any number of restaurants and watering halls. They will be here, for the next couple of days. I think they're all leaving through Friday. So it's a big deal. Mike says about 300 people are going to be here, and that includes prosecutors, judges, attorneys, all kinds of people. If I'm not right? Tell me, please.
Usually there are some. Most of the population are the caseworkers that work every day. This is an educational seminar that puts on probably close to 40 different sessions for people to attend to improve their understanding and ability to help collect child support throughout the state. Each county has an office with the prosecutor's office to do this. Allen County, I just checked these numbers, has collected $35 million the last couple of years. And
just the last couple of years, $35 million.
And that goes directly...
Is that a record?
No, we've been a little higher. The caseload numbers came down in the last 5 years. But
because they already heard about it.
But we're the third largest county population-wise, and we're the third largest in the state in terms of our caseload. And we're actually pretty close. Lake County has 9% of the state's caseload, and we have just shy of 8% of the state's caseload. Marion County is the biggest. But it's interesting, the 6 biggest counties in the state have 50% of the caseload. So
that is surprising to me because honestly, I think of some of these poor little counties and what the problems might be. And I don't know, I'm just surprised.
Well, this is a pretty successful program with the partnership between the federal government, state government, and local government.
And what we should say is that we did do a podcast on the Title 4D program. It is very successful. It has helped many families get the money they need to rear their children. But today, I really want to focus on something else. I did want to say that the executive director, Chris Naylor, of IPAC will be there, Title 4D Director Adam Norman, the Director of the Indiana Department of Child Services, Adam Krupp, will be there, Michael McGuire II, Chair of the IPAC's Child Support Committee, and Carla Mantia, or Korea, Title 4D... Carla. Oh, okay.
Carla Mantia.
Misspelling then, thank you. Title 4D Program Liaison for IPAC. It's probably interesting to note that on Thursday at 9:45 a.m., the Honorable Ashley Parker, District Court Judge, 10th Judicial District, Wake County, North Carolina, will speak on navigating cases when abuse is present. And that's kind of where I want to veer to, not just how you get the money, but what is present in these cases. They're saying we don't often talk about the other types of abuse that survivors face, such as immigration, spiritual, financial, technological, and emotional abuse. Parker will talk about recognizing other forms of abuse and best practices for navigating them to support those who need us the most. The moderator will be Michael McGuire II. He is a deputy prosecuting attorney in Marion County, which is Indianapolis. So I think one of the questions I have, a lot of people, I don't know if it's a lot, but I have numerous people who contact me through Facebook Messenger usually and tell me about their cases involving their children, involving abuse, involving their problems with this. How do cases arrive at the prosecutors or DCS, and what is the communication between the Department of Child Services and the prosecutor's office? And I can give you a for instance, because there's a woman who's been with the prosecutor's office very upset that her children got unsupervised visits with her ex, who lives in another state, whose partner has also got a record, and he just got arrested there. So what she was saying was kind of borne out, even though I haven't been able to do due diligence on this case. So tell us how these cases arrive at your doorstep or DCS or both. I don't know.
Well, I think that's the trick on it. Sometimes they do end up in both, and we're not always working for the same purposes. Our general role is in a criminal prosecution. If it's physical abuse of a child, we'll file neglect charges or battery charges. If it's sexual abuse of a child, will file the appropriate molesting type charge.
And will that come usually through the police?
And that usually comes through the police.
Okay.
Now, DCS may be part of the start of that. A school may be the start of it, because you have several people that are mandatory reporters that if they get information of some of that abuse, they have to report it. And then it gets funneled to the appropriate agency. Now, that could be to both DCS and to law enforcement.
So it's like, how does that get decided?
Well, if the perpetrator is also the parent, let's say, we'll say a physical neglect. A kid goes to school, has bruises, a teacher sees it, teacher reports it. Law enforcement may start looking into it. DCS would look into it. Let's say they take the child out of the home, and then they're looking at the family, and one of their primary goals, and this is something that seems to be changing a little bit. For a long time, it's been they were trying to reunify the family.
Right, the reunification.
Get the family services so that the family can be together again. Now there's a certain theory that maybe stabilization is better, because sometimes you're creating a yo-yo effect on kids, that they're in the house, out of the house, placed with an aunt, placed with a foster family. And is it more important to get stabilization and finality for the child, for the best interest of the child?
I have a question. Does DCS ever contact you? Or do they act in an autonomous manner?
Well, they have their own kind of hierarchy to go through, their own rules. They're basically their own court. Here they use Judge Morgan and her magistrates do the CHINS cases. These are, CHINS is short for Children in Need of Services.
So in other words, you have the criminal court, they have the family court. So DCS would normally go through the family court.
Yes.
Okay. Is there ever a civil case involved?
Well, CHINS cases are civil cases.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Continue.
I don't know if we want to go there. The legislature this past year did put a little thing in the state budget to create some pilot programs. And it appears that there are 8 counties that have been identified as doing pilot counties, 4 in the southern part of the state and 4 here. And it just so happens that Allen, Adams, Wells, and Huntington are the 4 pilot counties.
Okay, Allen, Adams, Wells, and Huntington.
And what that legislation did was it's looking to have the prosecutor's office handle the legal work for the Department of Child Services in CHINS cases.
Can I ask why?
I think there has been some criticism of how cases have been handled in the CHINS case, either the length of time that it's taken, the cost, the lack of permanence that has gone on.
What does lack of permanence mean?
Meaning if you've got kids that are kind of in limbo, that spend a certain amount of time maybe trying to be reunified, a problem happens, they then get taken out of the home, put into foster care or placed with another family member, that they live with uncertainty.
They bounce around all the time. It's terrible.
Basically, the kids that haven't gotten their permanent placement, whether it be adoption or going back home.
Yes. And I believe the goal is by DCS is either reunification or adoption. And they have some kids that are very hard to adopt.
Yes.
And they have some families that are very hard to reunify. I think the trick is, when do you make that call? I mean, it's a very significant step to terminate a person's parental rights. However, is that fair to the child? Where do you put your emphasis? And I don't know if it's because of inconsistency. I've never really practiced in the CHINS area. Former prosecutor Karen Richards was a GAL in her private practice for 20 years, and at times had concerns, shall we say, about how DCS handled things. But
Oh, I think that's been ongoing for a long time. If I ever hear anything good about DCS, well, let's just put it this way, it's very rare. People are highly critical of DCS, and there is a federal lawsuit against them right now. So please continue.
Well, they're in a very difficult position. I mean, to make that decision, do you take a kid out? If you don't take the kid out and something horrible happens, you get blamed for that. If you take them out and then they're bouncing around for 5 years,
So destructive.
how does that help the kid?
Yeah, it's just...
So, is a, if you will, an orphanage better for the stability? Is that more important?
that
than
thought
being
has
with a
crossed my
biological-
mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there used to be orphanages, but it was a different time. So...
But we also have kids with very severe mental illness problems. We've had some that have, over the years, luckily there's not a ton of them, but they are very hard to deal with if you have a very young child. I mean, generally, we don't actively prosecute kids under 10 for crimes. So what do you do with a 9-year-old who stabs mom's boyfriend because mom's prior boyfriend molested her? She's got
and you know why?
severe
You can
emotional-
understand why they got the knife out.
Yes.
That child needs mental health service. Okay, I'm just going to go on a rant here. I mean, you cannot criminally charge somebody who is reacting. A poor little 9-year-old.
Right.
Is this a real case you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was several years ago,
Okay.
but there have been variations on this of very disturbed kids at young ages doing things, and it's very costly to put them in, and there are very few places that can handle kids like that. So,
And I think the number of those type of places have shrunk.
well, that's one of the issues that we've talked before about mental health
Yes.
for just the general population. So none of this is easy. These are tough calls to make, whether it's a prosecutor making it, a DCS caseworker making it, a judge making it. You don't have any guarantee that what you're doing is going to work.
So let me ask you this. How did the state legislature come up with the idea, hey, let's get the county prosecutors to take over the DCS attorneys, what did you say?
Legal work.
Legal work. Where did they come up with that idea? Was there one specific case that was just so horrible and so terrifying that they said, we have got to change something and this might be the right route?
I don't know the answer to that. I know a year or so ago, a member of the legislature in passing mentioned to me about the idea of us taking over DCS legal work.
Well, then what would the DCS attorneys do? There must be a slew of them.
Yeah, I've asked that question. I think we have somewhere 10 to 12, 9 to 12 assigned to Allen County.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of cases. So, I mean, if you over on the second floor of the courthouse, they're usually pretty busy over there. So this new program, we are at the beginning stages of many of the questions you've asked, I've asked. We don't necessarily have all the answers. We're working that out. We had a meeting last Friday. We have a regional meeting next Monday. And I don't think DCS has a lot of these answers, and I don't think the prosecutors have a lot of these answers. And we have the ethical issue of what are we doing? Can prosecutors ethically prosecute the criminal case and use that as leverage either on the civil case or vice versa? Is that
Okay, I'm going to make a
appropriate?
snarky comment here. Knowing the state legislature and how much they love to say they're saving money, is this deemed a cost savings measure?
In my discussions with them, they said no. And I don't think it is at this time. I think there is a real concern. Is there a better way to handle this?
Thank God.
And I think one of the things I've discovered is the the legal staff with DCS is basically instructed to treat the client is not the child. The client is DCS and the caseworker. So they are dictating some of the legal decisions to proceed, go forward, terminate, all of that. It is certainly my intent, if we take this over, that we would take over that responsibility, that our relationship would be more akin to what we have with the police agency. We obviously try to work together with them cooperatively, but the ultimate decision on plea agreements and go to trial, don't go to trial, charging is ours to make. And I think any prosecutor, and this isn't a real popular thing, a lot of prosecutors want to have nothing to do with this. They feel that the problems ethically are just too great. Our goal in a criminal prosecution is to prosecute the defendant and
So they're
protect
saying
the
that
rest
this is
of the
going to be the
community.
burden of a lot extra work. But
Yes.
then you have all this core of DCS attorneys who could certainly maybe come on board.
Well, on a practical basis, we've talked before about the lack of attorneys. One would certainly have to look at those existing people to get started with. And I know a couple of them. I have a former DCS attorney on my staff now. I'm relying on him for a lot of background. I've talked to a couple of other people. So we'll see, how this plays out. If the ethical decision goes the wrong way, and hopefully we will get an answer on that here very shortly, that may sink the whole thing.
So then what do we do? Because it's really the children. It's so heartbreaking to see them go. I mean, I have talked to, and particularly men who have been mistreated by the system. They get a caseworker and DCS who just doesn't like them. I've got files this thick on them. I've never written about them yet. I really would love to. I mean, they basically destroyed the relationship between this man and his son. And the mother was out in California and she and her husband, the new husband, had mistreated this child, and they basically destroyed the relationship between the father and the son. He did have some problems, but it was heartbreaking to watch. And I mean, if you could put an end to this kind of stuff and become an advocate for the child.
Well, and that's the ethical second side of it, if you will, is if our goal is to do what's in the best interest of the child, then prosecuting the person that's abused them and using whatever leverage there to get cooperation from other witnesses. I mean, one of the saddest things we've seen is when there's an allegation of a teenage daughter of sex abuse against a stepdad or mom's boyfriend, and mom sticks with the boyfriend or the stepdad. Has tragic implications for the child.
I have somebody talking to me about that too, and they never took her word for it, and it was her father. So they finally took her word for it when her slightly younger sister became pregnant by him. So I mean, these cases go on and on. Mm-hmm. Nobody ever listened to her. She put up with more than 10 years of that kind of abuse.
But those are the kind of situations we get into, and what's best for the child. And I think we have a good track record on pursuing protections for victims. And if we do end up doing this, that would be my first priority over reunification. And
do you have the tools to go into this other kind of investigatory work when he's laughing? So, it says here by prosecuting.
As I've told you, we're understaffed on all sorts of areas. And I know this is a really tough area because you have so many issues involved inside any family.
Oh, yeah. And this is one of the caseworkers who's been talking to me. Oddly enough, she wound up in my Zumba class So she said, yes, I have problems with the criminal justice system. And she starts talking, and she is a counselor, and she sees problems with DCS and also feels as though some of these guardian ad litems, particularly the ones who are female, get taken in by what I call charismatic losers, the fathers who come on really strong and everything else, and then he gets more favor in the court. What she says there should be is somebody who's trained in the mental health field to be involved in these cases. So to what extent do we have somebody in the mental health field helping these children right now? I mean, might be difficult to answer.
It is. Well, I mean, they will, part of what DCS does is refer people out for services.
Right.
And some of that may be mental health counseling or parenting counseling, that kind of stuff. So.
But can't you do that too as a prosecutor?
We can.
Okay.
I mean, we can make conditions of probation in a criminal case. There's a lot of that, but are there enough services? And again, you always come back to the money. Who's paying for it?
Well, who's paying for it when DCS is in charge?
Well, that's why I think the DCS budget was $300 million. I don't know if that was as much as what the schools got, but a pretty big chunk. And I think the governor got $300 million to use in case there are shortfalls with DOC, FSSA, or DCS.
DOC, the Department of Corrections. FSA is what?
Family and Social Services.
And what was the third one?
DCS.
DCS. So you're saying that he's looking at the results of DCS, he's looking at the mess that everything's in, and he's saying, I want change. The governor's saying that too?
I presume so. He signed the budget, Bill.
Okay.
I mean, I think everybody has wanted to see improvements with DCS. Everybody wants to have kids safe. It's how do we do it? And I think the answer to your question, if we get this ethics opinion that goes the other way, maybe they need to restructure DCS and change the mission. And that may require legislation that would give better direction.
But that's going to take a while. I mean, while you have children who are caught in this terrible bind, and it just, you know, and I don't have any proof of this, but I feel like a lot of those children wind up in the juvenile system.
I think there's a pretty good correlation.
I would like to know what percentage of kids over there at ACJC were in the foster care system, which sounds brutal because I know some foster care parents that are marvelous. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I don't know. The big complaint is these people are just doing it for the money. And that has been, to your remark about orphanages, you know, yes, there are some people who see this as a way to make ends meet, shall we say, and that's disturbing.
Well, there's also, how do you assess how much damage has been done to the child?
It's a bomb.
And when can you get in and fix them? And I'm sure it varies from child to child. I've seen at least one case where the records we got, and this ended up in a homicide, but the records we got early on went back to kindergarten and trouble with this young person.
And this person was the one who committed the homicide?
And he committed a homicide when he was 12. So
when he was 12. But sometimes they're only 14 or 15.
Yeah.
I had an interesting conversation when I was with Wayne TV. It was outside.
Wait a minute, Jamie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that guy the same one that when he finally did get out of prison, committed more crimes and now is back in prison? The 12-year-old?
He is, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
She knows who you're talking about. When I was with Wayne TV, and I think I was at a commissioner's meeting, and Chuck Clark was there, who used to be the head of
Park Center.
And he is a professional in the mental health field and was heading up Park Center. And we were out, I was doing the interview with him. I still have the interview here on my phone. And he said, we have got to get to these kids early. And I mean, that just stays with me over and over and over again. How do we do that? And I know the teachers and the guidance counselors, of which we need more guidance counselors. Even the Chamber of Commerce once said we need more guidance counselors. If they can pinpoint that and be even better trained at finding that, maybe we could avoid. I mean, there are signs that children show early on that they are being mistreated in some way. And our hearts have to go out to them when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know. And then when they become teenagers, we're a little bit tougher on them. Well, why can't they get over it? Well, that's what they've been through when they're younger. So I just remember I wanted to put that in because I admired Chuck Clark so much, and it would be great to get him on here too to talk. But talking about what the prosecutors can do. I think this new program, I would back it totally just to see if it would work. It might be a pilot program. Could I please put that out with the Supreme Court Disciplinary Committee? Please, let's just try that one so we don't have so many, or maybe we could reduce the number of heartbreaking stories. But what else can the prosecutors do? How do people contact you when they know something's going on?
Well, I think DCS is still going to be doing investigation of a lot of cases of abuse and neglect, or be the first call. You still want to notify them. They're all of their, even if we take over the legal work, they're still going to have their case managers.
But what if
and
they don't have any
caseworkers.
faith in DCS?
If it's close to criminal, call the police. But even without faith in DCS, you can't blame DCS if they don't know about it.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to a very painful time. This is with the Lance Garrett's son. I always forget my right hand, help me out with that.
Malachi.
Malachi, thank you. I always want to say Michael and I say Malachi. Either the grandmother or the great-grandmother, that family had been shut out of just seeing that child, right? And they knew something was going on. And Lance, the father, who does have Malachi's law in the process, I don't know if it's become law or not, he had an emergency custody hearing that was scheduled, but it was like a few days after that little boy died. And they knew what was going on. I hate to say this, but they did call police. DCS showed up. They still didn't see the bruises. That was in October. He died in...
I don't remember
It
exactly.
was about a month later, right, around Thanksgiving. Okay, so if you had been that family and they didn't have any faith in DCS, could they come to your office, I guess is what I'm saying? Could they go to any prosecutor's office and say, look, this child is in a desperate way. We've seen the bruises. We know what's going on. He has lost weight. He's not a normal little boy anymore.
I mean, yes, they could send us something, but without documentation, we're not an agency that goes out and does home visits like that.
I think
That's what
DCS had been
DCS
there.
does.
Yeah.
That's what the police do.
But if they called you, you're going to make a referral to DCS.
Right.
Good point.
And if we think it's criminal, we'd make the referral to a police agency. The trick on that is, especially in the middle of a custody fight, you've got people on both sides. You don't know who to believe. It is.
But could
again,
you have
anything
another investigation into the boy's physical being? Because he had bruises on him. He had lost weight. He was, I mean, at 2 years old, almost 3-year-old, you're supposed to be gaining weight. You're supposed to be growing. He had dark circles under his eyes. That photo that I have in my possession, I'm still haunted by it. So keep going.
Well, I think that's where that does fall under the bailiwick of DCS, and that's where you hope they continue on, and they say they get in and they look at the kid and they make the call. But they're trying to factor a lot of different things, and it's a big deal, because what if it's the flip side of that there's nothing wrong and all they do is get these complaints, or there's something wrong, but it's not apparent.
Well, the other one.
And he was good at hitting the child.
Oh yeah, he hit it. But remember my right hand. There was something else going on there that they'd cut the family out, and there were some protective orders and things like that.
I believe there was a protective order against the biological father because we had to. I don't even remember how. Well, I think I got involved because of the criminal case with the protective order to allow him to get access to go to the funeral home.
Yeah,
We had
he
to
had to have
modify-
access. His own son dies. So here's another case too, was little Elijah, who was 9 years old over on Putnam Avenue. Same thing. These protective orders bother me in a way, especially in these situations, because they use them as weapons. And they keep the father away because they don't want him around. I mean,
But that's not the case with Malachi.
she was trying to keep Lance away.
Well, but I'm saying that's not why Malachi passed away.
No, but if the father had been more present, then he would have been able to discern what was going on because he already sensed it was going on. The grandmother and the whole family knew there was something going on. They kept that kid away, just as in the case of Elijah with that poor little kid. The father wasn't allowed. The father was incarcerated at one point and couldn't get close. It was a maddening situation, and then you have two children who have been killed.
Well, and this is one
Beaten to
part that
death.
is sadly so common, that when you have a situation where mom has kids, she brings new boyfriend home after not a whole lot of vetting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, amen to that.
And then she's working, boyfriend isn't, so boyfriend stays home with the kids. He has no emotional connection to those kids. If
And often is
anything,
hostile to that child.
Well, many
because
times-
there's another father, another man involved.
well, it's also because the kid is taking up time that he wants to spend with mom.
That could be too.
And
I just think they resent the child
anybody
altogether.
who's raised kids, especially with toddlers, they can drive you nuts with the crying and the screaming. And if you don't have that emotional bond with them of unconditional love, they can drive you nuts. And we have seen so many cases of abuse by the boyfriend or the stepdad who doesn't have that relationship. And you don't want to diss all of them.
Some of them are wonderful.
And some
I've
of the
seen
moms
wonderful
are
ones.
victims of prior abuse, so they kind of fall into this. But sometimes I think if we just had a holding pattern on when you could bring a new person into your child's life to live in the same house with you, it would be a good thing for the kids. How we enforce it, no way. But it's that kind of thing, though, that we've seen it enough in that pattern that it is very dangerous for the kids.
Oh, it is so dangerous. I mean, the grandparents were involved. And I'm trying to remember of little Malachi's mother, who was messed up. Her grandmother was involved somehow and still didn't. I don't think that they liked Mitch Van Ryn or whatever his name was, but people feel helpless sometimes too. That's why I'm saying if there was a clear-cut thing or a clear-cut hotline, we do. We have the DCS
We have the
hotline.
The trouble is it still
Right.
needs to be supported by facts. You still have to distinguish. Again, in family, we've all known people that they are involved with somebody that we know isn't good for them. All of their friends and family know that it's not good for them, and they continue to do it. And
That's when you need the nosy neighbors. Right in there calling them out.
And many of us have been in that situation. And later, when you get out of the situation, you recognize, and it was, what was I thinking? I wasn't thinking, was usually the answer.
Right. It's a
But it's
problem.
particularly tragic when kids are involved.
Oh yeah. It's heartbreaking.
But also recognize that when you see that kind of stuff as a family member or as a friend, how difficult it is to approach the person and let them know that you're concerned for them and yet not alienate them.
Right. So that's when I think if you really think, okay, you see the woman and she's made a bad choice. This is typically the situation, although it could be the flip side, of course. But if you think the children are in danger, then I would really hope that people would be emboldened a little bit to either call the police, call the DCS hotline, which I don't know the number right offhand, or, call your Allen County prosecutor. Because at least you all can tell them where to go.
Yeah.
And you are now made aware that there is a situation in that home. So, all right, I think it's been a great discussion. Does anybody have the last word here?
I got nothing.
You got nothing, all right.
Take care of your kids first. Put your kids first.
Please, please. Please. Okay, so this has been The Probable Cause. You can find us at www.theprobablecause.com. There's also a Facebook page where I post a lot of the articles that I write. It is just simply called The Probable Cause. It would be very nice if you could go on there. We are also on YouTube for the website, and we are on Spotify and Apple as far as the audio is concerned, and you could hear our podcast there. So until next time, goodbye. This episode is filmed and edited by Frosty Pictures. The Probable Cause is produced by Maumee Media.
Worried when I crossed the Michigan line, a cop from Steuben County waiting on I-69. A headlamp went out while he pulled me over, charged me with possession after I rolled down the window.
Now that's skunk.
Indiana's a trip when it comes to weed. It's like who doesn't smoke or use gummies? Your grandpa, your brother, your rich friend from school? Hell, throwing the whole courthouse and my attorney too. It's time those assholes change these stupid laws. It ain't worth the paper for a probable cause. Sitting on a bar stool in my usual place, this guy next to me said he was looking for some cocaine. Hell, I just sold him an 8-ball with a little piece off for me. But my buyer was a cop? Should have known he was a creep. So I'm a dealer, right? You gotta be kidding. It's a rich man's drug. I just take it because I'm injured. 8 years in Westville with a monkey in my back. There's more drugs in here than you can shake a shank at. One dirty drug test, man, this system's flawed. Undercover screwed me in my probable cause. Street crimes never did me no favors. I'm hooked on Fetty. I'm a junkie, not a felon. Told that son of a bitch on the way to lockup. I can't seem to shake it. I need help, not mocking. What do you want from someone who's been through the system? Drugs all through the house before mom and dad went to prison. Throw me in jail and give me a fine? Someday I'll be dead and away from your kind. Now I'm at the courthouse in front of a judge. Can't say my public defender cares for me much. Crimes are committed on both sides of the law. God help me now with this probable cause. C shift never gets old. Anything can happen when you're out on patrol. You think I'm just eating donuts, man? Give me a break. Nothing on this job is a piece of cake. Lights and sirens activated, this knucklehead wants to chase. Baby mama at the scene just spit in my face. Wife's worried that someday I won't be pulling up at all. You'll read about my killer in a probable cause. Man. She went through my phone and she seen my text. I told her forget it. It was just my ex. She took a swing and knocked me flat. Man, I went wild to get her back. Judge slapped me with a no contact order. Now she's got the kids and she's staying with her mother. So she started it all and I have to take the fall. You can read my whole story in the probable when I was young. Caught a case for dealing and did my time. Yeah, I got a record, but I was doing fine. Running my own business on the southeast side. Yeah, I got a gun. I kept it on hand. Told the cop my reason, thought he'd understand. In this neighborhood, you need some protection. Attorney thought I could get just community corrections, but the judge decided to send me to prison. Can't get ahead no matter how hard I try. Read the probable cause, it'll make you cry.
Whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why. when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause.